Hello.
What up, though?
Welcome back
What up, though?
to Blasian Soul Podcast. I hope you are all staying warm and keeping your sanity with the coldness if you're in the Midwest.
Actually, it was pretty hot today. So
I heard, but was stuck inside working all day. So, yeah, you got to go outside because you're running around with the kids. So, which I appreciate that.
Blazing Soul Podcast, once again, Wednesdays, coming to talk about current events, to give flowers to entrepreneurs, role models, community leaders, and just kind of give insight into the Black and Asian community. Lately, things have been crazy. I keep saying lately, it's been like 2 years now.
Oh my gosh.
Don't
remind me.
The pandemic and everything that's going on. So we have continued to provide this platform to discuss topics and meet young entrepreneurs in the area.
Mm-hmm.
We usually start off talking about current events or things that's happening. So let's talk about the FedEx. Excuse me, I'm all stuffy and whatnot. But let's talk about the FedEx delivery guy, Black gentleman delivering packages for FedEx. A Caucasian male got in his car or his truck and tried to box him in so he couldn't leave. He swerved around that guy. The guy's son was in the middle of the street with a gun. He swerved around that guy. The guy started shooting.
That doesn't sound familiar.
Right. This guy started
Even
shooting.
The dad had the same name.
And, then they called the police and said they seen somebody suspicious in their area. This is the second time this has happened, and they should go to jail for a very, very long time.
Second time they've done that?
No, the second time this has happened in the news.
Oh.
Where people have taken the law into their own hands, so to speak, and they were dead wrong in that champion whatever they thought was going on. And it seems that it always happens to a Black male or a Black person in general, people of color. It's never some Black guy seen a white guy walking and wouldn't grab their guns because they look suspicious. It's maddening. It's horrible, and there should be a lesson to learn from this. I mean, they should get 10, 15 years so that the next person knows not to do something stupid as shooting at somebody just because they look suspicious. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my lifetime. And for anybody out there who can give me a reasonable reason why
you're going to shoot at a driver.
You're shooting at a person because you believe they look suspicious. Well, first of all, what was it about their appearance that looked suspicious? Was it the color of their skin? Because the guy was in a FedEx uniform. So I don't understand how that would look suspicious. So that's number one. Number two, you can always call the cops, take down a license plate number, and say, hey, this is what I observed. You guys do with it what you will.
Right.
But to take the law into your own hands, considering you're not a trained professional, is idiotic in nature.
Right.
So if you're out there, stop it. That's the dumbest thing I heard of. We have people dying, people getting shot at because
they look suspicious.
Right, because you have a feeling about something. Who the hell are you to have a feeling about another human being?
Right.
It might be like I said, the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, and they should go to jail for an extremely long time based on them being stupid and almost costing somebody their life.
Right.
What if they hit him? He would have died. What if they would have shot through his car and hit somebody else that was in the neighborhood or in the area?
Yeah, or a kid riding around in their bike.
Totally. It took a situation and made it 100 times worse.
Yeah.
For the simple fact of, you had a premonition or you had a feeling or however you want to justify that action. It's insane.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's Black History Month. I really don't necessarily celebrate Black History Month because Black History is a 12-month event. But don't let this story die because Initially, when it was reported, it was all over the news. Now that they're being charged with a lesser crime and not attempted murder. It's something like aggravated assault with a gun or something along those lines. So don't let this story fade out of these gentlemen shooting at this young man who was at work. He's
Right.
FedEx driver. He's working, doing his job, and because he looked suspicious in their eyes, he almost lost his life. So let's not let this story kind of fade into the distance. Make sure you keep abreast of this, and if you have to, write to someone. Speak out because these guys could go to jail for extremely long time.
Yes. So speaking of stories, see how that works? Speaking of stories, we have our guest here tonight, and she is a published author. Naomi Wong is joining us, so we are going to learn a little bit more about her story, about her book. So we know nothing. None of the questions are planned.
It's always like that.
So we always go with the flow. So if you have questions for her, you hear something that you like, make sure you comment so that way we could also ask her those questions. So without further ado, we welcome Naomi to the show.
Hello, how are you?
Finally!
Yes, good to meet you face to face.
You too.
How are you?
We are doing well. Thank you. And I'm glad it worked out that you're available today.
Yes. Thank you for contacting me and being willing to make it work. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, last week we had to reschedule, but we're here now. So we are excited to learn a little bit about you, your journey, where you're at, and a little bit about your book. So, yeah.
Well, let's start out with give us a little synopsis of your book that's published.
Oh, man, you start with the hard questions first. Okay. I always tell people it's so hard to say what this book is about, but here we go. Okay. So there is a woman who is also a human weapon, and she ends up pregnant by her trainer at a covert agency, and cross-racial marriages, pregnancies, those are illegal. And so she flees to save her own life and the life of her unborn child, and runs right into the arms of a handler from a different agency. And that person says that he's her handler, who takes her to a family that's supposedly her family. And there's this big adventure opened up as to, well, who is this person actually? And what is she doing in the story? So very exciting, lots of intrigue and a little bit of action as well.
Yeah, that's it. He loves the action, the sci-fi kind of twist.
Oh,
This one right here. He's a Marvel fan over here too.
I was gonna say it is a more complex version of like a Black Widow type story.
But he loves that kind of stuff.
Now, I can say that this book, from listening to your summary, is ready made for a movie. I mean, it has all the intrigue, the things that make you go, "Oh my God, I didn't believe that."
Yeah.
So this is, you need to start putting the script together and sending it out.
Do you know, during the writing of this book, I actually stopped it partway. And I started trying to learn how to write a movie script because I thought this is like the way I envision it. Yes, it needs to be a movie. And much respect to the screenwriters out there, it is difficult. I think for multiple reasons. So it's a great craft, but I think there's a lot left to the imagination of the person who is, the people who are interpreting it, the actors and the people that are talking about how it's going to be shot, the lighting, the music. And I think that for me as an artist, I was thinking about like, I like having a little bit more control in that. And so I was like, okay, I got to write this as a book first. But I would love if someone would turn it into a movie.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, it does. you have to have certain elements when you are
Yeah.
trying to convert a book to a movie, and I believe it has those
Yeah.
specific elements.
Yeah.
Now tell us, how did you? First of all, how did you start writing? I mean, did you want to be a writer when you were growing up? Is it something you grew into? How did this kind of come to fruition?
Yeah, great question. And I would say all of the above. So I remember like writing when I was little, just any kind of stories. I read a lot, and when you read, you tend to write as well. Um, so I did do a little bit of that, but most of my stories were very derivative and just whatever little kids think of to do, right? You
Sure.
mimic what you're reading.
Right.
I think when I actually started to write as like expression, as art, and understood that that was what I was doing, I was just out of college, so a of years ago now. And mostly it started as poetry. So my first two books are poetry. And I was having a rough time. I was dealing with some unresolved trauma, and it was time to resolve it. And writing was the way that I ended up being able to access some of the things that I wasn't able to get to by facing them head on.
Okay.
Fiction was an interesting kind of safe space for me because it was like, poetry is expression and expression is good.
Mhm.
But there's a creative space in fiction where sometimes you don't like, it's not just writing about what happened to yourself. It could be, although that kind of borders on maybe not so fictiony.
Right.
But there is a space where you can write about feelings and um, issues, things that you're thinking about in the world, and dream about what it would be like for it to be better, like all of those kinds of things, right? Fiction is a very multidimensional space that way. Um, so, yeah, I would say the fiction writing came sort of out of need, but also like it was the fun writing as opposed to the poetry, which was more of the necessary writing.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that most stories of fiction either has a little bit of the author
Message or
in it,
something. Yeah.
or it has a little bit of the author's thought process as far as
Mhm.
what would I do in certain circumstances, or what would I hope that I would do.
Mhm.
If three armed men come into my house, hopefully I would be able to do X, Y, Z. So
Mhm.
it's expressive of the author to a certain degree.
Mhm.
So fiction. So are you a closet nerd, or you just wanted to talk about that topic? Where did that? Because usually when
I thought
someone,
that's what you are.
oh,
Isn't
oh,
everybody? I don't know.
Yeah.
I did not know.
Right.
We closet nerds are a breed unto themselves. Okay, first of all. Yeah. So is it that you are interested in things like sci-fi and adventure and mystery, or is this just something that you think the audience would appreciate, and that's why you do it?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so I think it had very little to do with the audience. I'm going to be honest. I was just having some fun. Um, I think the genre choice did come from like, when you talk about an author working out thought processes, I think
Mhm.
that the psych thriller, actiony kind of genre, and maybe also speculative fiction genre was a comfortable space to move in as I'm dealing with social issues and the deep, dark recesses of people's mind,
Sure.
that sort of thing. Um, but there's a little bit of nerdiness that goes into any kind of fiction writing that you have. So I don't know how many novel writers you know, but there's so much research that goes into it. So I was like reading the encyclopedia and researching all kinds of topics, things I never thought that I would read about. But I enjoyed it so much, and I would say that half of the fun of writing fiction is like, yeah, there's the story, but then there's like all the cool things that you learn about when you're trying to build your world.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
whoa, mind blowing. I loved it.
Aw.
Um, Give me your two favorite books of all time,
Oh my gosh. Only
or movies,
two
or it could be movies as
How
well.
about
and of
movies?
all time. Okay, let's see. off the top of my head, oh my gosh, there are too many. Okay. Um, I'll go for the recency effect on one. So Crime and Punishment. I read that this last summer.
That's a
Um,
huge read, first of all.
yes, it is. Although I had help. It was an audio book that I got from the
Okay.
library, so I was reading it. But I paid attention. I'm an auditory learner, so I was kind of just sitting there, and I think I put it on like 1.5 speed. So they were talking really fast like this, and it was really great. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I cried at the end. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So that was really good. And let's see, something else. I'm gonna go with another kind of verbose one. Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Very
The
good book.
original. Okay.
Yeah, I read it when I was in high school. And it made such an impression on me. I mean, okay, so the first half of the book is like snooze, why am I here?
Yeah.
And then, the second
You know
half it
that?
really picks up.
Frankenstein?
No.
Everyone had to read that in high school. Really?
Yeah, it's good. Maybe what I would say is like skip to the second half. I don't know if it works
Oh,
that
you
way 'cause it
can't do
builds a lot.
that. You can't do
I
that.
wouldn't. I wouldn't.
I always read the ending first.
Mm-mm.
Actually, it depends on the book, but I have been known to like skip to the last page and be
Yeah.
like, "Is this worth finishing?"
This
And then
is
I'll go
what
back and read it.
That
Right.
that is cheating. Okay,
It is. It is.
that is cheating.
But I've been burned before. Like, you read all the way to the end of the
Yeah.
book, and then you're like, I wasted my life on this. Like, why am I? Why? So yes, I have done that before. It is cheating, but sometimes you have to because you can't trust people nowadays. It's crazy out there.
How about
Last,
Shakespeare? You
last,
like Shakespeare?
Shakespeare is very long and drawn out as well.
That's
Um,
true.
last book I read that was just like that I loved was The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown.
Oh,
Very good
a long
book.
read too, eh?
Very eye opening. I mean, it's not something. Of course, it was based on fiction, of course, but it just put in questions that you never really posed about the world. Same thing with The Matrix. The Matrix changed my life. The movie, just for the simple fact it made you view things from a different aspect. It made you ask questions. So that's why I like that one as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of good material out there. With so much streaming services and all things of that nature, what do you do to get your creative juices flowing? So, is there anything that you watch particularly, or is it just internal that you get those juices flowing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is having to do with like um my own, I guess you could call it internal, but I do things. So like I'll walk. Walking, it's kind of weird. It's like if I have a mental block, then I'll just like walk, and there's something about the act of my body moving that makes my mind also move a little bit. So that works. I paint and dance. So sometimes other forms of creativity can kind of like, if I get stuck in one form of creativity, then I'll kind of jump over to something else and it helps. As far as like uh, inspiration, I think that um, I don't usually like emulate what I see, but I know that there are at least two TV shows that definitely colored the early formation of my book Amphibious. So one was the far too short-lived Dark Angel series. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's kind of a sci-fi
Wasn't it the
Jessica
girl
Alba.
Yeah, Jessica Alba.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So it was real good, right? Government cloned experiments escaped and they're on the run. Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, love that. Great example of a strong woman, snappy dialogue, and interestingly, like especially early in the series, very hopeful for something that is sci-fi. And I think for me that's important. I can't read too much or consume, I guess, too much sci-fi because it can often be very depressing about the world. And even though I want to be like socially critical and thinking about like how things can change, I really am thinking about how things can change. I don't want it to just be like, oh, well, things are bad and that's just the way it is, guys. So let's get used to it.
Yeah.
And I think the Dark Angel did that well. So that one, and then hey, for you, Marvel, Agent Carter, again, far too short-lived, but that was an amazing series. It was like two seasons, but again, very strong woman, a woman with scruples, and yeah, I appreciate that. And that one was fun because they had a butler, so
That
a lot
was
of
very, very short lived, though. I mean, that was a blink of an eye,
hmm
Agent Carter. So, okay, now how do you feel about Agent Carter's participation in the Marvel Universe in the movies, or have you seen the movies?
I
I'm
have
gonna be
seen the
so
movie.
disappointed if you have not seen the movies.
I definitely have.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've pretty much all of the movies, I think. I think I missed one of the, well, definitely the recent Spider-Man movie, but maybe the one before that too. Um, but yeah, everything else I've seen, I would say I was disappointed with Peggy Carter's participation in the series, and I think it's because she appears in the first Captain America movie. Then she gets old. Then she dies. Then they have her niece or whoever that is as some kind of like semi love interest, and it was just kind of weird. I was like, "What
Her
are
niece?
you doing? Like, just do something so she can have her own space."
Yeah.
And then you get like your little cameos and stuff. But I think maybe for me and probably for a lot of like the other women and young girls out there, I think it's nice to have more time with the strong women characters, right?
I think she played a great part in the first Captain America.
She
I think
did.
she played a very integral part in that. So
Absolutely.
tell us a little. We've talked about your book a little bit.
Yeah.
We've talked about your inspiration and creativity,
Mhm.
but tell us about Naomi growing up. Where are you
Ooh.
from? Who are you? That background stuff.
All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to talk about that. You guys are great with coming up with questions. Okay, so where I'm from is a little tricky. I was born in California, but I've moved around a lot, a lot, a lot. Lived in Montreal for a while,
Oh wow.
Seattle, Houston, Honolulu, Vancouver.
Honolulu.
Did you have like parents who were in the service or something?
No, they actually
Okay.
were like kind of like campus missionaries
Oh
with a
yeah.
Christian fellowship. Yeah, so they moved quite a bit for that, and then eventually it was just me. I'm going around and doing different things. I'm currently in New Jersey, so
Okay.
yeah, I've been around. I think the last place that felt like home was Hawaii, but my parents are still in Vancouver, and my family's kind of all spread out. So I think home is more like less like a geographical area and more like where's everybody gathering, and that
Right.
that's where home is. So
Right.
um, growing up, hmm,
It
yeah,
must have been tough. It must have been tough going to school in so many different places and
Mm-hmm.
having to uproot everywhere
mhm.
you went.
Yeah, it was hard. Most of a lot of the moving actually happened after high school. So I did have two or three big moves as a child. Um, but yeah, so I'd say probably the hardest one was from California to Montreal. Actually, maybe that's a lie. Okay, wait a second. I don't know. Both of them were hard. Okay, so um, moving from California to Montreal, that was the first big move, and so I think that was difficult. They speak French there, and we did not really speak French. Um,
Do you speak French?
Oui,
I
oui.
do now.
Oh.
Of course, yeah, yeah. They say use it or lose it, so I can understand it when I hear it, and it kind of like hurts my head, but like I do understand.
Hmm.
Speaking, not so good anymore. But yeah, I think one of the hardest things about moving to Montreal, besides the language issue, was the racial relations. So
Hmm.
at the time anyways, they were calling themselves a mosaic city. Everybody's living together,
Sure.
but they're all distinct. And so you've got these little enclaves with well, this is where the Chinese people live and this is where the Italians live. And that was really funny to me, moving to a place where like there were different kinds of white people. I was like, I don't
Hmm.
know, what does that even mean? Okay,
Right.
Oh,
fine.
wow.
Right.
But yeah, so they kind of all separated. And then for me and my sister, the issue in our school, I was in 7th grade, she was in 9th grade, but they would bop us around to different groups. Well, you're mixed with Chinese. Well, go hang out with the Chinese kids. Oh, well, you're mixed with black. Go hang out with the black kids.
Oh no.
And yeah, so that was difficult. And then the other thing was like, with respect to being black, there was not much of an understanding of American blackness. And so they would continually kind of grill us about like, well, what island is your mom from? And it's like, well, we're not from an island. We're, and we, try to explain the history. We're descended from slaves. And like, yeah, but what island? And it was just like so mind blowing that they're like, we know that you said you're from California, but what island? How are you black but not from an island? And this was a real concern for everybody. So there was consternation on both sides. Yeah, but I have fond memories looking back on it. Wasn't so fun during the time, but better now. Yeah, and then the second move was to Seattle area. And again, I kind of ended up going to a more segregated school. And so I think that was difficult for me at the time. But one thing that I learned kind of in all of that moving around was to go and like gather around all of the social rejects, because outcasts come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. And
very
so
true.
like, all right, cool. And we were probably the most diverse group in the school, actually both schools, definitely. But yeah, it was hard, but it was also an experience that I wouldn't trade in for anything, because I think it taught me not to use some of the same supports that other people use, right? Sometimes we walk around the world. This has never happened for me, but I hear that people, they gravitate towards people that look like them. And there's a feeling of safety in that, right? That you can go to people who look like you and you can trust each other. That inside of this world where everybody is turned against each other in some kind of way, that there's this group of people that you can kind of, hang out with and you'll be all right. And I feel that way with my family, but it's not because of the way that we look. It's just because they're my family. I sensed pretty early on that I wasn't going to get the same kind of support most of the time from either of my parents' communities. I still claim them and I still have solidarity with them, but there's tension a lot of the time. That's just
that's why we have the podcast. Like,
yeah, and I appreciate that so much. Like the work that you guys do, it's important, and we need more of it. So I'm just grateful and admiring this work, because I know it's not easy. I know.
No, some days we'll be like, are we going on tonight? Because we do this out of our heart, right? Because we want to make a change and we want to get the message out there that, Black and Asian, like, we're not what the media shows we are, and there are leaders amongst us. And so we want to highlight those leaders. And like my husband says, give the flowers while you're still here, and but also shed light and show the world who we are. And and a lot of times that's how you make connections, is through stories or through finding commonality, like you had mentioned a little bit about it earlier, where they can trust you if they feel like you're similar, have similar things in common, so.
And I think I think that's kind of an American thought process, because when we go abroad, so when we went to Egypt,
oh my gosh, yes,
I felt totally at ease.
Wow.
Now, she didn't even know what racism was. She's like, what? My husband asked her. My husband asked our tour guide, do you have issues with racism here? And she's like, what is that?
Oh, amen.
And we had to explain it to her. Oh, I see that going on in the U.S. and stuff like. So she was like, I see it in the news and media, but no, that everybody is the same here.
Wow.
Her thing was, it's more financial. So it's
the status.
It's rich and poor.
Yeah, it's supposed to color
different,
right,
different races.
Yes.
But even though there were people from multiple races in Egypt, I just felt at home. No, I won't say at home. I felt more at ease, and that's why I say I think it's more of an American thing where when you initially see somebody, because of the struggles we've had in this country and the divisiveness, you automatically judge
assume and
certain
judge.
people at certain times, depending on what's going on. But when we've been abroad, I don't think I've had that same thought.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's because we see things based on our past experience. And so because we have gone through those things in the past experience, we automatically assume, oh, they did that because we're Black or because we're Asian, because we've had that happen to us before, right? Yeah. So it's one of those struggles where it's like, do you think they were being racist or not? But then it's like, they don't come out and say it, but their actions.
Well, racism to me,
you can sense it.
Racism is one of the worst things I think in the
world.
So therefore,
so bad.
If I don't accuse someone of it unless I'm sure, because it is one of the worst things that you can do. So I try to be optimistic to a certain degree, and not, sometimes people use that as a crutch, and sometimes it's very legitimate. More times than not, it's very legitimate. Yeah. So I try not to make that judgment call until I'm sure.
Right.
But you being Black and Asian,
tell us about how you feel. You kind of like.
Well, what was your experience? Have you experienced racism, and if so, was it on your both Asian side or your Black side, or what's your experiences been?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, huge question. But yeah, I would say definitely. I mean, like you said, in this country, everybody's going to experience it some kind of way. I think I've learned to expect it in primarily white circles. I just, I mean, we call ourselves minorities, right? So you just know you're going to end up kind of receiving a lot of interesting, at best, microaggressions, and you deal with it, right?
Sure.
Probably the worst of it that I experienced was when I was living in Texas. So it's a border state. People were racist against me, but they didn't. It was actually for different reasons. So they didn't know what my mix was, but they thought I was Mexican. And being Mexican in a border state, looking Mexican in a border state, bad idea. I don't know who thought of it, but yeah, there were issues, and it wasn't just like social tension, but like a couple of times, like my physical safety was threatened, kind of things. And it's like, oh man. And like, I guess the best thing that can come out of that is that for a moment on those days, right, I step into somebody else's shoes. And I mean, I wasn't thinking that it was right to treat anybody that way, but it's also like giving me up front, close and personal, helping me to understand what is put on some people on a daily basis. And they don't always have this, I don't know. I think even though it was like, I didn't like the experiences that I had when that happened, I also had like a bit of an emotional distance on it to be able to say, well, joke's on them, because they don't even know, like, they don't know anything about me. And the truth is that whenever somebody acts that way towards someone, they don't know anything about you, right? Sure. Whatever they think they know, they don't know. Right. So I think that was an eye-opening kind of experience for me. I frequently get mistaken for other things, frequently kind of pick up people's racism for reasons other than what I am. But I would say that actually, it's in experiences with my own people that I tend to get some flack for what I actually am. Yeah, and that's definitely happened on both sides. So when I was little, mostly in Asian circles, oh my gosh, everybody was tormenting me. But then as I got older, I think that, my mom would say things like, well, hey, you're the rule is, you're 1/32 Black, so you're Black, or you're 1/32 or more, right? One drop. You've got
one drop.
And she was trying to tell me and my sister, like, you guys, she raised us to believe that we were both, right? Fully Black, fully Chinese. And there's truth to that with respect to our heritage, right? You can't have half a heritage.
Mhm.
We have a whole heritage. We have two whole heritages.
Mhm.
Black people are as much my people as they are my mom's people.
Mhm.
Chinese people are as much my people as they are my dad's people.
Yeah.
But I've learned to kind of try to have some kind of sensitivity to the fact that when I walk around in this world, nobody's thinking that I'm a black person, nobody's thinking that I'm a Chinese person. And so
Right.
experientially, I have a different existence than other people. And so that doesn't bother me. I don't think it makes me more black or less black or whatever. It's just kind of like I am how I am, and I believe I was made that way, and I feel pretty good about it.
Right.
But I do have to say sometimes it can be sad, I guess. I was going to say uncomfortable, but it is a sad thing that the communities, and especially minority communities, are so. Um, I think the best way I can put it is that it seems protective. That people are afraid of. Um, Maybe afraid isn't the right word, but they're protecting against change because there's a threat from the outside. Maybe it's white people, maybe it's something else, but there's a sense of needing to protect group identity and something that's different, right? If you're reaching across boundaries or you embody reaching across boundaries, that can feel threatening. So I try to have a little bit of grace about it, a little compassion, I guess. But it's perplexing. I mean, I grew up believing that I mean, it was my world that your family didn't have to look like you to be family. I didn't like, I used to think that my
That is
dad
true. That is true.
mom's sister because I was like, well, they're both girls, so obviously, my dad's sister is my mom's sister. That works. And
Mhm.
I never noticed that like, well, they're different colors, so obviously they must be like, my dad's sister belongs to my dad and not to my mom. Um, but I think that just goes to show that that kind of association is trained, right?
Right.
We belong to the people we belong to, and where the love is, that is where you belong.
Yeah.
um, yeah.
That's
So,
true.
but I'm sure that you guys also you must have thoughts about this too.
Yeah, I don't think I think that your internal, and I could be wrong on this, but
Mm,
your internal group or family, I don't think it's a big problem. When I think where it becomes a problem is like you, sister, when you walk into a room, they gonna think you black. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's white, whether just from your physical appearance, your demeanor. Now that for your family wouldn't be an issue because you family, whether or not you white, black, whatever you are. But I think it's when you go outside and the what is thought of you or what is said in whispers and things of that nature kind of determines the culture that they believe you are. Because to be frank, um, perception is key. So if everyone perceives you as a person of color or a black person, then their natural, um, I guess, shield comes up with thoughts of how black people are. As opposed to your family, they could care if you 1/16 this and 1/8 this. You know, they raised you, they changed your diaper, so they could care less. You know what you are. I think it's the outside
Yeah.
influence, the outside world, where it becomes a difference or it becomes a problem. So to that degree, I do think that. I mean, I'm a big proponent in uh, people of color and disparaging the negativity surrounding that because in my opinion everybody talks about um, slavery but no one talks about the greatness before slavery. So in that aspect, everybody says, oh, we're descendants from slaves. Well, we're descendants from a people in Africa who created math before 90% of the world, who created a lot of the things that we utilize to this day. Everybody thinks the Greeks and Romans invented a lot of it, but a lot of it came from Africa. So we come from a people to be celebrated. So I think it's the narrative outside our collective people or organization that kind of makes things kind of go bad as far as that is concerned. So, everybody has their difference in opinion and whatnot. I mean, we're all human beings, don't get me wrong. But, you know, it's very hard to think that way when you see some of the bad stuff that happens to people that look like us. So, sometimes it's very hard to say, oh, can't we just all get along when you see a young black man shot because of his color? So it's a hard process to go through.
Now, how was it for your parents being in a racial relationship?
Yeah, they should be here to talk to you guys. I think you guys would have a ball.
They should be on the show, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to pass your info around.
Right? I know.
You can, I guess we'll make do with my perception of it.
Yes.
But I would say it was difficult. You talk about internally how mostly things are okay. On my mom's side, that was true. Because, I think Black communities, and especially the ones that my mom is descended from, have tended to be more diverse, right? You've got all kinds of mix already, and Native American mix all up in there, and a diversity of phenotypes for various reasons. And so I think that, my mom's family is just very open, very accepting of my dad. My dad's family was a different story. It was difficult. They are from the American South. And so even though they are not white, there was a sense of the hierarchy that this country has had for a long time. And so that created some conflict. That was a difficult thing early on. And I think after my parents got married, there were a few years of it was really bad. And then by the time my sister and I came along, whatever relationally had been ruptured was kind of a little bit more healed in the way that it could be. But those sorts of things, you still have the scars for years later, I would say. But my parents do love each other very much, and I think that most of the places that they go, people comment actually less about how they're racially and culturally different, but more on their personalities are just really different. So I work with Peggy Zodiac, but my mom is a dragon, my dad is a tiger. So 2 power signs. Even though I'm not really a zodiac person, I'm actually that one makes a lot of sense. No, it's explosive. But yeah, they're fun. They're fun, and I think that one of the things that makes it work, besides their being very committed, is they like a lot of the same things, and they're able to kind of reach across boundaries. I think even before they knew each other, my mom, she liked Chinese food. She's from LA, so LA Chinese food.
Yeah.
And then my dad was totally into psychedelic music, and I don't know, it was just it worked. And they're a fun couple.
What are you thinking?
No, that's just funny because whenever we have a event, and Porn's family is cooking and all that stuff. And they mean nothing by it. Most of her family loves me. Most of her family loves me. They will always say something like, because they know I don't eat a lot of traditional food. He doesn't. So they'll say something like, okay, we have the fried rice, we have this. Oh yeah, and we got fried chicken too. And it makes me bust out laughing because they mean nothing by it, okay? Yeah, when Paul said something one day, they were just like, oh my God, no, we didn't mean it like that. No, we just want to make sure you eat. And so it was funny when you said that, your mom likes Chinese food. That's hilarious to me. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. But and Asian fried chicken is different than other kinds of fried chicken you might get, but it's good. If you go to the right places, they can fry some chicken.
I tried pho soup Me and my wife has been
for
together.
the first time.
Yeah, me and my wife have
ever.
been together almost 20 years as far as before we were married and then when we were married.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I would never try pho soup. And I finally tried it. It was damn good.
I
It was damn good.
Never tried it. He finally tried it.
Yeah, I'm very picky when it comes to that.
I'm like, you don't want it. Do you want a pho? Pho? You want some pho? And he thought, pho? Like,
what the heck is that?
what is pho? Pho.
So, and also, I mean, there's traditional food. I don't eat some traditional black food.
Authentic.
I don't eat okra. I don't eat chitlins. I don't eat beef or pork either. So I don't,
that's fair.
But you know what? I don't want to get use all our time up without you plugging your book. First, once again, tell us where can we get the book, first of all?
Yeah. You can get the book on pretty much all online platforms. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple. It might also be on Google by now. I'm not sure. Yeah, and it's in printed and ebook form.
Oh, it is an ebook form. Okay, now let me ask you this: since you are a audio learner, have you done an audio version yet?
I have not, and that's only because I am an indie author and it is very expensive. So I will say that I am saving up for it, and I'm very, very excited because it is a life goal. I would really love to release an audio version of this book.
Well, you have two voice actors right here if you need some help with that.
I love it. Would you do it for free?
Yeah, we're just doing it for the love, without a doubt.
Taxpayers right off for that.
And once again, for people who joined us late, give us a quick, synopsis of the book, a teaser, so they'll run out and get it.
Yes. Okay, here we go again. A female human weapon discovers that she is pregnant by her trainer at her covert agency. This is a cross-racial relationship and pregnancy against the law. So she has to flee to save her own life and the life of her child. And she ends up right in the clutches of a handler and a family that say that she belongs to them. And now we have to figure out, who does she actually belong to? Who actually is she? And what is her mission? That's all.
Awesome. Now the reason
I read the book to find out.
Right. The reason I keep asking you this is because they say you need to have your 60-second elevator pitch, because if you get in an elevator and there is a producer there and he's looking for a idea for a new movie, you got to be able to rattle that off to him before he gets out that elevator.
It's true. I've been practicing.
Now, we always ask this of our guests, but if there's someone out there who has an idea about a book, but they think that they can't do it, or it's too time consuming, or they don't have the requisite capabilities to do it, what advice would you give them to kind of make that leap?
I would say do it. So do what you need to do it. I wrote this book over 6 years. I was writing it on my lunch breaks because I worked full time. So I was just, whatever, I had my notepad or sometimes just scraps of paper, sometimes my computer, but not often. And I would just write everything down, couldn't read half of it. I would go home and type it up. And it took a long time and it was painful at times. And I thought that I was not going to be able to do it, all of that. But I think that what's important is the resolve to say that you're not going to give up on it. And so what if it's slow? Just do it. And you'd be surprised how much you can get done by just deciding that you're going to do it a little bit at a time.
Now, look at this. You have been on for 40 minutes. One of my good childhood friends just said he's going to buy a copy for his wife and his daughter. Look at that.
Oh, hey, thank you. I'm feeling a lot.
We want to say thank you very much for coming on, to take time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. Like I said, we want to give our flowers to people out there making a difference and kind of taking the bull by the horn. We'd love to have you on and, some other time.
Or your mom and dad.
or your mom and dad.
All of us. We should do all of us.
Our kids,
Yeah,
your kids,
we were
our Blasian families.
We were gonna do like a Blasian episode and all this, so we'll definitely
Hey, hit me up.
see what we can do.
I do want to know. Thank you, Sharon.
Oh, thank you so much.
I do want to know, how did you find out about us? Because initially you had emailed us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, kind of sadly, in the spirit of how things go with books, the market is very whitewashed, right? And so, trying to find places to talk about the book or to explain why it's relevant is a difficult thing. People are like, why do I want to hear about someone, first of all, who's not white, second, who's mixed, but then like is not mixed with white? And people, it just blows their mind. They're like, but the biracial people are half white, so you know, it has to be a story about them discovering their not white side. And I'm like, I am not discovering my white side, okay? Like, I just don't. So anyways, but what I did was I decided to start with looking up places that I could talk about being mixed, or at least, you know, and then, you know, talking about my book, that's great too. But as you can tell, I have thoughts about race and mixedness and all of that. So anyways, yeah, I looked up, I think the exact Google search was Blasian podcasts.
No way.
We were the second hit. So yes. But yes, it's been such a gift to be here. Thank you guys. I love what you do.
Thank you.
I mean, I really would love to do it again. So you just tell me when and where. I'll try to get my parents in on it.
Yes, we would love that.
We got you. Don't worry about it.
We will have you back, Naomi. Thank you again, and thank you for being so patient from having to reschedule from last week. Yeah. We wish you the best. I'm sure you'll hear from us again, and be expecting for a couple of book sales already. And so do you have any last words or anything that you want to say before we let you go?
Mostly, like I said, I think I said it with thank you, but I just bless you guys, bless your work. Like I said, it's so important what you do, and praying joy and encouragement on you, because for the moments where it's not easy. But thank you, and love to all the people who are watching.
And my daughter's on there too, and she just said, "I'm Blasian too."
Yay! More Blasians.
More Blasian. Blasian love. All right, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Awesome.
Very good interview. You guys go out, grab the book. We will have her back on. You know, in the coming months, but it's good. You know, there are a lot of times that we as minorities, we do venture out and start businesses and do different ventures, but it seems sometimes that we're always pigeon-toed. Oh, we're just going to do a restaurant, or we're just going to do this or that. It's good to see, you know, a person of color kind of stepping out of their comfort zone, doing sci-fi and thriller books and things of that nature.
You love that.
Well, it's not you know, that thought process is not indicative of any culture. So you know, just because a lot of white people might
no, I'm saying you love sci-fi and all that stuff.
She encourages me if I wanted to write a sci-fi book.
I bet you would be. I bet that would be good.
To do something like that. So I truly appreciate
absolutely
kind of how that rolls.
Yes.
We don't want to take too much of you guys' time. You know, thanks, Horn. You know, we don't want to take too much more of you guys' time. We'll be back next Wednesday, 7:00, same time,
same place.
Same place. And once again, guys, you know, just because things might be a little bit better right now, it's still a little sketchy out there. So protect your loved ones. Try to help who you can. And by all means, watch your six. Let me watch your six. Other than that, we'll see y'all next week.
Yes.
Peace out. Deuces.
See you next week. Lock on.